Democrats are in full meltdown this week after President Trump announced he's hosting a massive UFC MMA event right on the White House lawn, the same sacred ground where President Biden once hosted a pride celebration featuring topless trans activists. The event, dubbed UFC Freedom 250, is scheduled for June 14th and will feature a main event between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje. Democrats say the fight represents a disgusting desecration of the hallowed ground once reserved for gender expression and exposed nipples. Critics are calling it everything from disgraceful to literally violence. We've obtained exclusive reactions from top Democrats.
President Biden respected the American people when he paraded topless trans women on the South Lawn. But now Trump wants to put two shirtless men in a cage beating each other up. This is a step backward for our democracy.
Groceries are higher than ever, and Trump wants to play with life-size action figures in his backyard? He should be playing with life-size dolls like President Biden did. This is not who we are.
I just can't believe the president would be so irresponsible to host MMA here. It's an insult to everything Joe stood for. Put me down for 10 grand on Zahabi.
President Trump fired back at Democrats, saying the UFC fights would be the only way topless men would be allowed on the White House lawn from now on. Coming up next, President Donald Trump has taken the official step of recognizing Pride Month this year by hosting a soccer match right on the White House lawn.
2, 3, hey. Somewhere in the bowels of a city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. But we don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Cameron Crane, Tom Tradup, John Gibbs, Gabriella Hoffman, Patrick Hedger, and Betsy Wright. Sketch comedy with the Babylon Bee and the inimitable Nick Peterson. And she's back with new music from Toy Story 5. It's Taylor Swift in the spotlight. And now from Times Square, where the U.S. and U.K. are planning on playing on Independence Day, and somewhere King George is already nervous, here's that Kevin!
Welcome aboard, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. It's That Kevin Show. All things for That Kevin Show at thatkevinshow.com. Very glad to have you and welcome you there. I got to brag on you a little bit, by the way. In the month of April, for the second month in a row, you gave us more traction at thatkevinshow.com than we'd ever had before. Set a new record for the website by leaps and bounds over where it had been previously. And in the month of May, I just have to say, when we looked at all the statistics and everything else, you tripled the amount of traffic that we had in April. So, yes, another new record thanks to you. Thanks for using the website. Thanks for making it completely accessible to your life and to enjoying all the free benefits we've got there. We've got the cooking website. We've got the travel website. We have all of my commentary about news and culture and what's going on. And we're just grateful to be able to offer you all the podcasts, the TV shows, the videos, the columns. It's all there. It's in one place, thatkevinshow.com. Thank you for using it. And I also want to say this about, we are looking at a day of firsts today. And I just think we've got to acknowledge it for what it is. Brand new polling that's just been released, and what this poll found is remarkable. On that, I did not expect any of the results that it came in with. A major polling organization has just released information about how Americans would like to see the war in Iran ended. And I'm going to tell you the surprising results of that in just a second. But this is also surprising. I got to throw this in here. Longtime critic of President Trump, James Carville, the Raging Cajun, he's the guy that just talks crazy all the time, says Trump's just lost his mind. James Carville
is praising President Trump for the efforts to bring the conflict in Iran to an end. And he says that this is a good move, and that even though he's a political opponent, he said, they call it a memorandum of understanding. He said, let's be very clear about that. And let's give Trump credit where credit's due. He did what Lyndon Johnson did not do in Vietnam, just get out, Carville told News Nation this week. People that hate Donald Trump are saying that this situation is being handled well. I've got a lot of friends on the center right that I don't quite understand their position. They seem to have some degree of doubt about the deal. Look, I'm with Vice President Vance. I'm not sure that there is a deal yet, but the deal that they're going to make in order to talk about the final deal is not one that Iran wins anything in. In fact, the vice president and then the president the day after this week said repeatedly, Iran doesn't get a dime. They don't get a dime of sanctions relief or anything else until after the 60-day negotiating period, and only then when they provide proof that they're doing what they said they would do. And by providing proof, it's not like under Obama where you let a third party go in there and say, oh, yeah, we think it's all right. Wink, wink. No, we actually get to inspect and see for ourselves that it is the way it is supposed to be. Then and only then, after they've provided the proof, do they get the sanctions relief. The Strait of Hormuz is reopened. That's going to help our allies in Europe. That's going to help our allies in the region. And at the end of the day, this is how else do you want it to end? You just bomb everything until all Iranians are dead? The Iranian people want to be liberated. They want to have their nation be a member of the League of Nations, the group of nations that is well respected in the world. So I'm not going to get too distracted by people on the left or right throwing cold water on a president who's been nothing but right in almost all of his understanding of most of the negotiations that he's done around the world, and has the receipts to prove it. Now, there may be those of you that are really hardcore forever war types that just want us to get bogged down there and see a lot of Americans killed. That's not this president. This is not the president that's going to do that. His last name is not Bush or Obama. This guy wants to see Americans home safely. He wants Iran defanged of its nuclear powers. And he wants to see the world start to get along in better harmony. I think that he's on his way to doing it, but we'll see. But here's the thing that I started the segment off with that I'm really surprised about. And this really, truly did shock me. A new poll just released asked Americans, how would you like to see the Iranian conflict come to an end? And the two most popular responses were, by the largest margin, 39% said complete regime change. 36% said, no, I had that backwards. 39% said a negotiated settlement, the very path that the president is on. 36% said regime change. I am shocked that 36% of Americans think that regime change is doable, much less preferable. Did we not learn the lessons of Afghanistan and Iraq? You have to let those people decide for themselves what they want their government to be. What we can do is help restrain tyrannical forces from co-opting the process and threatening all of the neighborhood with nuclear weapons. That's what we can do. But we're not going to be about picking who it is that they pick. That's up to them. We didn't do that in Venezuela. The person that took over in Venezuela after we arrested Maduro, because we had the right to arrest him because he's a criminal, he tried to kill Americans, is the person that they voted for. So at the end of the day, we're not telling these countries how to run themselves, and we're not going to be able to. But we can make Iran a lot less dangerous. We can make the region a lot more safe. And at the end of all of that, the thing that comes out of it is a realignment in the Middle East that doesn't threaten Israel, our other allies, our Arab allies,
or America anymore. And that's exactly the path he's on. Anyway, I was shocked to see that the president's path that he's on, 39%, that's what the American people, in a total of 100% of the vote, 39% said negotiated settlement, 36% said complete regime change, 16% said basically strong-arming them into doing them what we want them to do, and 8% had no opinion. But that's what the poll said. And so you've got the American people basically endorsing the president's plan of action, with the vice president and the president this week both making clear that Iran's not going to get, there's no more pallets of cash. That ship has sailed, it's done. And coming up, surprises beyond what you can think. I'm just going to drop a hint. Toy Story.
Now, back to that Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. ThatKevinShow.com is where we put everything so that you can get it. It's never behind a paywall. And you know that every week I love to delve into the critical mass issues that we're dealing with, not just the top headlines, because a lot of policy is being worked on in a lot of different ways that the networks are ignoring. So I try not to. And I'm very glad to welcome Cameron Crane with us for the first time. She's with Independent Women's Forum. She works in the entitlements policy analysis work at IWF. That's a mouthful, Cameron, but basically you work with my very good friend Patrice Onwuka to make sure that the American people are truly getting what they're being told they're getting, in and out of the system. And there's some news on all of this. The president is concerned about entitlements. What's been his approach in the second term thus far?
Yeah, so we see President Trump really trying to get the Americans on their own individual retirement accounts. We see him really trying to scale back the fraud and abuse that's happening in SNAP and Medicaid. And really, he's trying to reform and make it so that people are really getting what they think we're getting. So making sure the budget isn't entirely out of control, and with Social Security going insolvent, trying to make sure that Americans have an option for their own.
What's amazing is, and I haven't heard anybody address this, but if you have Social Security going insolvent, but you have $20 billion that Minnesota was, skimming off the top for people that weren't eligible for it, it seems like, yeah, Social Security's got its issues, but there are things we can do to at least begin to shore stuff up. And that fraud and abuse thing, people always kind of yawn at it like, well, there's always going to be fraud and abuse. Well, yeah, there is if you have like a whole state that's ripping off the republic and no one's holding them accountable. But there is accountability coming, and it seems like the Justice Department and the Treasury both are kind of on the march to get that stuff recalled back. That could literally help us.
Exactly. We saw in 2025, there was an estimated $186 billion in improper payments across 15 government agencies, and that's just in entitlement accounts. And if we scaled that back, as the One Big Beautiful Bill is attempting to do with the lowering the improper payment rates and then putting in some of those the state matching requirements, that will definitely help with entitlement programs across the board, scaling back that abuse.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that people have always just kind of thrown their hands up and gone, what can we do about it? Well, we can actually start doing math again and keeping track of things. So if you have $186 billion that was being fraudulently paid out, you pull that back, even if you were to put that into the Social Security equation, how would that impact? Well, what's the shortfall? What are we expecting from Social Security?
I don't have the exact number on what the shortfall is going to be right now. Social Security is still being fully paid, but the trust fund will go short, and I'm not sure of the exact amount, but in 7 years, it won't be able to fully pay that. Okay. And then at that point, 24% of benefits across the board will be cut. I don't have the exact dollar amount on that, but I'm sure the $186 billion will likely not go directly
Well, the
towards...
reason I'm kind of drilling down on this is because the Trump administration has taken a unique approach to trying to help people be ready for this well in advance. What are they doing?
Right. They are, Trump has come up with this TrumpIRA.gov, which is coming live in 2027. And it's basically a website of resources and a list of retirement accounts that will help low-income families especially find low-cost retirement accounts so that they can start contributing to their own savings. And they're also changing the federal savers credit into the federal savers match. So for a low-income individual to contribute $2,000 annually, the Trump administration will contribute up to $1,000 to match that. So, for example, if a low-income individual that's 30 years old starts contributing their max $2,000 annually, and then to get that match of $1,000, in a traditional retirement account, this would grow to $443,000 by age 65. And that's a great nest egg to kind of get them less reliant on the Social Security system.
That would be incredible. What's been the process of this? Did it have to go through the legislature? Is this just an executive creation that he's made? Like what was the process on it?
Yeah, it did go through the legislature. It's under the Secure 2.0 Act, and that passed last year in 2025.
Is that part of the Big Beautiful Bill?
No, it's a separate, the Secure Act is separate from the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Okay. Well, that's good news all the way around, and we need to know the good news because obviously it's an election year. There's been a lot of people talking about these things, but I'm really amazed at how unimaginative politicians have been, at least in my lifetime, because whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you've used Social Security as a punching bag and as a rhetorical point, but there's been very few, George W. Bush uttered the word privatize and people lost their minds. It's a hot potato for sure, but this doesn't take anything away from Social Security. And if you can get people thinking, hey, I'm going to have to be responsible for this, that's going to end up way better for them long term. Let's talk a little bit about the idea, though, of Social Security being untouchable, because that is what politicians easily try to, do in their campaigning. Say, well, that guy's going to destroy it, and I won't touch it. If I had a nickel for every politician that's promised that over the time, I'd have my own IRA. But the truth is, we're going to have to do some math here and make sure that we do the best that we can. No?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people that I've run on, I'm not touching Social Security, but we see that the more they do that, the more it's going to hurt women especially, because 15% of women receiving Social Security benefits are the survivors or spouses of retired or disabled workers. So they're benefiting from, being married to high-income earners, and men don't do that as much. So we see that if Social Security benefits are cut when this eventually goes insolvent, that directly impacts women in a disproportionate way. And so if we just keep going down the road, women are going to get hurt. And people who are truly relying on this because they don't have lifetime income, or they are relying on this fully as their retirement because they have no lifetime savings, it's just not going to continue well for politicians. And so there are ways to reform Social Security while protecting the low-income earners and ensuring that people who probably have those lifetime savings, the high-income earners, that they are scaled back on the benefits while still protecting the low-income earners.
Well, I think that that's all super important. And I also think that this has been a holistic approach by the Trump administration. Because when you talk about, and maybe you can touch on this a bit, but even things like the kids' accounts that the Trump administration has put into play, this gets the whole population thinking about saving and investing and being a steward earlier in their life.
For more of That Kevin, next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, where we always leave everything for you from the broadcast. The podcast, the videos, the columns, the shows. If you want any of it, thatkevinshow.com. And especially if you can help us here in the final week of our effort to get these children that we've been telling you about to a Christian summer camp experience with Project Angel Tree and their camping program. ThatKevinShow.com. The banner is at the top of the homepage. Just click on it. It doesn't take more than 2 minutes to make a difference. But so far, you have helped us send more than 70 children to summer camp this summer, and I'm very excited about that. Tom Tradup is back with me. He started out with us on the first week of the campaign, and Tom, we had a little bit of problem with the phone lines and stuff in the first couple of weeks, but since then, many people have stepped up and they've said, hey, we're going to get these kids to Christian camp. And I keep thinking about, for me personally, I think the thing that gets me most excited is what I'm going to call the first-timers. The kids that have not had any relationship to a Christian camp experience in any way, and they're going to show up, and for the first time, it's a little secret, they're going to have their mind blown. Like, it's going to be so cool what they're going to get to experience. But walk us through, for people that are just joining us for the first time, how it works.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Prison Fellowship is a nonprofit organization started by Chuck Colson decades ago. And they do so much good, and especially with this program that you have gotten behind 100% with That Kevin Show. The idea is that boys and girls who have a mom or dad, or in some cases both, in prison, through no fault of their own, get bullied or they get shunted off to a caregiver. It might be a grandparent or somebody who loves them, or it might be a neighbor or somebody who's just taking care of them while mom or dad is in prison. And it's not an ideal situation for them. Many of them are in bad neighborhoods, gangs, and drugs around them. And we want to see that they don't follow in their parents' footsteps. What happened with their parents is not their fault, but the statistics show that people who are in that situation, young kids, often will follow in the footsteps of their parents if they aren't able to break that cycle of crime. So the Angel Tree program that you're supporting takes a kid out of a bad situation and sends him or her to Angel Tree Camp, which is a wonderful fresh air Christian fellowship camp. They go out and they do swimming and archery and horseback riding and all the activities you expect at camp. Oftentimes, the biggest part for them is getting 3 meals a day. We laugh at that because our kids always get 3 meals a day. Pardon me. But some of these kids only get 1. And during the summer, when school's out, a lot of them have been relying on school for that midday meal. So they get excited to have a cabin, other kids who are there. They find out after the first day or so that everybody at the camp has a mom or dad in prison. So they no longer feel ostracized or a weirdo. And it just is a great experience and literally transforms their lives because the counselors every single day introduce them to the gospel. They're singing Christian songs. They learn about Jesus. And it's just something that changes their lives, as we say, for eternity.
Yeah. Well, we talk about at this microphone a lot about impacting the culture that we live in and trying to make a difference in terms of how the culture operates. Friend, if those of you listening or watching are doubting that, all you have to do is see the influence of someone's life who gets changed and see how many people they end up touching. But this is one thing where, like, for a $200 gift, you send a kid to camp and you say, okay, I sent a kid to camp. Well, what did that turn into? It turns into those conversations with those counselors. It turns into being exposed to the gospel. It turns into, many times, that child becoming a Christian. Many times, and I've talked with Steve Collins and Betsy Wright and some of the others from Prison Fellowship, those kids eventually become counselors at some of these same camps, and they're leading other kids to the Lord. It's like, if you want to have long-term impact, make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. That's how you change not only the lives of the kid that becomes a Christian, but they end up impacting their world around them. In fact, I was just listening to a story yesterday. We had some people get baptized at our church and profess their faith in Jesus publicly. And a father came to faith because of the faith of his child. His child came home from camp, was witnessing to him, and not just words, but how he was living.
And the father took notice of it and eventually put his faith in Jesus because of the faith. That's what these kids turn into. They turn into little testimonials of God's goodness to the world around us. And Tom, in a day in which everything seems to be upside down, backwards, and inside out, we need that. We need enthusiastic faith from children who are excited about knowing Jesus.
100% true.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related. We don't put anything behind a paywall because we want you to have free access to it. And I'm always eager to check in with my friends at the Heritage Foundation because they're doing such good work across so many different areas of public policy and life. John Gibbs joins us today. He's the director of the Thomas Rowe Institute for Economic Policies at Heritage, but he's also formerly of the Housing and Urban Development Department as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy and Research, and he joins us to talk about housing. You've just recently written about it, John, in the in an op-ed in the Examiner. And when we talk about the economy and when we talk about real experience for what the consumer and the voter is dealing with, I don't know that it gets any more real than what their housing circumstances are. So give us the state of the state in 2026.
Sure. So when you look at housing prices now, I think we all know that things are pretty wild. We are approaching a point where in the middle of Ohio, you could be paying $1 million for a starter house in a few years from now if we don't change direction. So we have record low housing affordability that we're facing in our country. And I think the key message right now is the politicians really are not showing a whole lot of insight into how to approach this problem. They're talking about getting local communities to build more housing. Okay, that's fine. If local community wants to build more housing, they should do that. But what is not talked about is the fact that about 80% of mortgages in our country are government-backed, 80%. So we basically have a socialist mortgage market. There's not a single European country that does that. We're the only one. And so we have a totally government-driven mortgage market. And just like when the government backs student loans, it makes college more expensive. When the government backs home loans, it makes homes more expensive. It's the same dynamic at work. So until we are able to look at this problem and address it, we're not going to make a lot of progress on the issue.
That makes total sense, and especially the correlation to the student loan issue. And just basically anytime government gets involved, things become way more expensive than they need to be as a general rule. Mm-hmm. How do we fix it? How do we get more privatization into the equation and less government involvement?
So I think we're going to have to come up with a plan. It's probably a multi-year plan to transition into letting the private sector take a bigger share of this. One of the things that I think we need to do is say, if the government is backing 70-something% of mortgages now, I think we need to have a plan to get that down to, say, 50% or 40%, whatever that number might be, over the next X number of years. And so one of the ways you can do that is you can reduce the maximum home price that the government will back. Right now, the government will back homes up to $1.2 million. And these programs are made for working class people and regular people, but we've gotten it to where they're backing $1.2 million homes that can be eligible for Fannie and Freddie and FHA in some parts of the country. I think we've got to bring that down. And what happens if you bring that down is that there will be fewer mortgages for really expensive homes, and there will be more mortgages for reasonably priced homes.
Well, yeah.
What that means is the builders will now be incentivized to build more reasonably priced homes because there's more people getting mortgages for those, and there will be less of an incentive to build expensive homes because there will be fewer people getting mortgages for those.
I mean, every $1 million home you take off the market, you can put two $500,000 homes in its place, and that should be like a no-brainer.
Right.
But this is the challenge, John, and it's the challenge across all of government. Once the government has been involved in something for a while, it becomes metastasized, and stuck onto the government edifice almost permanently. Like it's worse than trying to, spray barnacles off the bottom of an ancient ship. Like it is really bad. So practically speaking, how does that work?
Well, you bring up a good point. President Reagan said the closest thing on earth to eternal life is a government program. So
he wasn't lying. Where's the lie?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think one of the unique things about housing is it affects everybody personally. Even the lawmakers who are going to have the courage to step up and look at this, they themselves or their kids who are young adults trying to buy a home can't afford anything. So this is actually a personal issue, and I think that there's leverage with that to start the conversation and say, Mr. XYZ, whoever that, say, lawmaker might be, do you want a future where your kids have to pay $1 million for a starter house? And I think that's a great place to start the conversation. Another advantage here is that the bulk of the population understands, when you explain it to them, that this is madness and that we need to change direction. So I think it'll be incumbent upon the people and every organization and think tank and people such as yourself getting the good word out there to just have conversations about this, saying, look, we have to change direction. You can't have a socialist mortgage market and home affordability at the same time. And I think the more people talk about it, the more people communicate with their elected officials on this, the more they're going to be incentivized to take action. Yes, the industry has a very big voice, and look, we want them to make money. But the problem is we're so off balance right now that we're going to make it so no one can buy a home in the future. So I think we've got to have them at the table and say, look, we're going to have some flexibility here in order to fix this thing.
I think when you talk to younger generations of the millennials and Gen Zs and even Gen Alphas, you're starting to see real dynamic frustration in the inability to buy a home. And I think that is going to become a much bigger issue. President Trump is very savvy about all things related to the economy and to economics. What has he done on this issue? Is anything being done? And if so, how can we best help it if it's moving in the right direction?
So there is legislation working its way through Congress right now called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It's got a few good things in there. It's got some things in there that won't make a difference, but at least give them credit for trying to do something. President Trump has been very adamant about having a provision included in that would prevent large institutional investors from being able to buy up single-family housing. It's very astute for the president to be aware of this because most people believe housing should be for families, a place for families to grow and thrive, not an investment commodity that's traded like stocks and bonds by big financial firms. So for the president to step up, recognize that, and push in that direction is very good. I think there's a lot of other things that we can do to make housing more available for individuals and families as opposed to large investors. And I think the president kicking off that conversation, getting it into the national conversation to say, look, we want housing to be for families and not just an investment commodity traded like stocks. I think he deserves great credit for that, and the conversation needs to continue on that topic.
Well, and I think that you have to also look at it from the standpoint that as a real estate guy himself, that very concept rubs against everything that he's ever, plotted and planned in terms of his own strategy as a businessman. So he's really saying this is what's right for the country.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Will it be the biggest movie of the summer? Who knows? But its soundtrack is shaping to be one of the biggest of all time. Here's Taylor Swift from Toy Story 5. I Knew It, I Knew You. From the sneak peek film debut of Toy Story 5 in Hollywood, that was Taylor Swift, and a very, very big treat for those in attendance. The brand new single, I Knew It, I Knew You. She's our guest this weekend in the Spotlight, and she'll be back in hour number 2 with a special guest. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. Stay here.
Hey, get the soundtrack. Search hashtag New Music Spotlight on Spotify or Apple Music.
The nation is reeling today after a Texas jury ruled that you cannot stab someone in the heart for no reason at all. The case involved a defendant who took out a knife from his bag and stabbed a random victim in the heart for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Legal experts and the public have been unsure of what the outcome of the case would be, but the jury in the Collin County District Courtroom delivered a unanimous guilty verdict on the charge of first-degree murder. The defense attorney for the now convicted heart stabber made this statement today following the verdict.
My client is black!
And now we go to BBN legal correspondent Anthony Pataki reacting to the surprising decision. Anthony?
Thanks, Bob. Honestly, we didn't know which way this case would go. With today's activist judges, you can do all sorts of violent things in America and get away with it normally. This was a surprising outcome. The court case is a real wake-up call to people carrying knives all across this country who have the normal expectation that they can stab anybody that they like and get no consequences for it. The people I've talked to out here, they seem really shocked by this case. Back to you in the studio, Bob.
This verdict has left many wondering whether the ruling could set a dangerous precedent for criminalizing other random acts of violence, such as shooting people in the face for no reason. What is this country coming to? Coming up next, former President Barack Obama went on record to say if he had a son who had stabbed someone in the heart with a knife, he would look just like Carmelo Anthony.
Somewhere in the bowels of a city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Tradup.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra.
Straight ahead, Cameron Crane, Tom Tradup, John Gibbs, Gabriella Hoffman, Patrick Hedger, Betsy Wright, sketch comedy from the Babylon Bee and Nick Peterson, and with new music, it's Taylor Swift in the Spotlight. And now from Times Square, where 250 years later, we're still settling things, but this time with a soccer ball instead of a musket ball. Here's the Kevin!
Weekend. I'm Kevin McCullough. Former intelligence chief Tulsi Gabbard is once again raising questions about COVID origins and Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in the pandemic response. At this point, the COVID story has more plot twists than a daytime soap opera. Somewhere, a Hollywood producer is actually pitching The Fauci Files, Origins Unknown, a 6-season streaming series. Meanwhile, a bizarre diplomatic spat has erupted after President Trump claimed Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni begged for a photo, while Meloni's camp insists that never happened. Historians are calling it the first international incident caused entirely by yearbook energy. Speaking of awkward public appearances, video of former President Biden reportedly searching for family members at the Obama Museum opening this week has reignited debate about whether a second term would have been realistic. Supporters say everyone gets confused occasionally.
Critics point out that most people don't do it while standing next to 3 former presidents and 20 television cameras. The Justice Department is warning that one formerly conservative state may be on the path to becoming, quote, the next California after embracing new restrictions on ICE. That's become America's favorite threat, by the way. Nobody ever says, we're becoming the next Wyoming. It's always California, as if the state has become the political equivalent of a cautionary tale told around campfires. Overseas, U.S.-Iran peace talks have been postponed again. Diplomats say negotiations remain productive. That's diplomatic language for, hey, nobody threw a chair today. Rosie O'Donnell is now floating theories that Trump didn't really win the 2024 election against Kamala Harris. No, Kamala Harris actually won. Which is fascinating because now we're entering the phase of American politics where election denial apparently just depends entirely on who lost. Jay Leno says Joe Rogan is the modern-day Johnny Carson. That's probably true. Carson interviewed movie stars. Rogan interviews comedians, astronauts, former spies, nutritionists, and occasionally a guy who claims Bigfoot ran a cryptocurrency exchange. In health news, doctors are reporting a rise in complaints about Ozempic lobes. Apparently, rapid weight loss can affect the appearance of your ears. Think about that. Americans spent decades trying to lose weight, and now we're worried our earlobes might get too skinny. Progress! The White House has invited a viral German soccer fan named Freddie for a visit. That's right. Becoming a social media sensation is now apparently a more reliable immigration pathway than filling out paperwork. The FDA says dye-free candies are finally rolling out nationwide. Americans demanded healthier ingredients while simultaneously purchasing enough sugar to fuel a small moon mission. In Florida, a woman has pleaded guilty to selling thousands of fraudulent nursing diplomas. Nothing inspires confidence quite like finding out your nurse may have graduated from the University of Trust Me, bro. Simone Biles is firing back at online critics after revealing a frightening medical emergency, once again proving the internet's most abundant natural resource is unsolicited opinions. And finally, Michelle Obama says people keep asking her about the next chapter. Social media immediately exploded with theories because in America, nobody is simply allowed to write a memoir, start a project, or enjoy retirement. No, every next chapter must apparently involve a presidential campaign, a podcast, or a Netflix deal. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
With Liberal Mutual, you'll never pay for a single crime, whether it be sexual misconduct, campaign fraud, or just a simple accounting error for your fraudulent winery. Liberal Mutual's got you covered. With the privilege of living penalty-free. And with no hidden fees, you'll save money for more things you really enjoy, like insider trading, bidding on Hunter Biden paintings, or nights out on the town with Chinese spies. With Liberal Mutual, the repercussions for stealing those millions in FEMA funds are as existent as brains on the view. But getting caught without liberal privilege insurance could be the worst thing to happen since World War XI. So switch to Liberal Mutual today, where consequences are a thing of the past. Should I say so good even the Clintons walk free or no? Never pay for what you do. Liberal! Mr. President, I put new batteries in your Diet Coke button. And I hung the updated photo of Joe Biden. My name's Nick Peterson, and I'm the White House housekeeper. I start the week off by making a run for enough aspartame to kill an African bush elephant. And then it's off to gather more trans fats than a Reddit thread. I did get him a better self-tanner that won't turn him orange. So the left's gonna have to come up with a better slogan. They can't shout brown man bad. I have been the housekeeper here through 3 presidents. Truth be told, Obama was pretty easy, aside from some cigarette runs in his first term and the occasional cover-up. It's only 3 feet of water. You think they'll believe it? I did not get paid enough for Biden's 4 years, though. Is that poop? It was always, Nick, Hunter stopped by, clean up all the spoons. Nick, Easter's over, take down all the trans flags. Nick, run this box of documents over to my house in Delaware. So I was looking forward to things returning to normal. Mr. President, Jake Paul called. And what time do the UFC fighters get here? Why are you on the roof? What's the best part of my job? Probably the opportunity to be around the most powerful leaders in the world while they're hard at work. Oh, don't post that. The worst part of my job's gotta be sweeping 55,000 square feet and also sweeping the bushes for armed liberals. Or when all these world health leaders visit the White House. Check the mail, you got a fundraising letter from the Kennedy Center. Boy, they got bigger stones than Easter Island. A complaint from the EPA. I used a paper straw today, so damage offset. Looks like you're moving. 10% off movers. Oh, that's for Pam Bondi. With 132 rooms and 35 bathrooms, keeping the White House clean is like trying to lower the national debt with a lemonade stand. But fortunately for me, it ain't getting any bigger. I love my job though, because I feel like it's important. I feel like I make a difference.
Nick, I need a Diet Coke.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. Always pleased to have you with us and never putting anything behind the paywall because we want you to have complete access to it. Joining us from the Independent Women's Forum is their energy guru. She watches everything related to the energy topic. And Gabriella Hoffman is her name. She's the director of the Center for Energy and Conservation with IWF. And it's great to have you because even on the just anticipation of the memo of understanding being signed, electronically, and hopefully they're going to get a real signature here. The idea that the energy markets like the Strait of Hormuz being somewhat reopened and this idea that we're moving to an end to that conflict has really been responded to nicely in the energy markets. What do you make of where we are?
Yes, I think that's to be anticipated because energy markets are still very global. But what's very fascinating is I've observed that a lot of the crude futures prices have gone well below $80 a barrel. You're starting to see gasoline prices tick down below $4 a gallon. So everyone was anticipating that this would happen, but was very fascinating. And I watch a Bloomberg analyst very closely from the UK, and he observed that this was supposed to be the biggest disruption in any energy market ever, seen worse than previous oil crises, and he concluded that actually this didn't pan out to be a calamity, as a lot of people were forecasting it to be. I think largely because countries like ours that had good energy policies in place, we were able to insulate ourselves from the shocks of the conflict. Other countries were looking for ways to purchase energy differently than necessarily purchasing oil and gas that travels through the Strait of Hormuz. So people are getting smarter to not be dependent on adversaries for oil and gas and energy in particular. And if this isn't a wake-up call, let's say there's another conflict like this, are these other countries going to be prepared? Not necessarily. But even as prices were ticking up, you did see, even in countries that don't have the best energy policies in place, that those prices were still historically lower than, let's say, previous oil and gas conflicts.
And I remember the hand-wringing and the pearl clutching of, we're going to have $200 a barrel oil, and everybody was like freaking out. It barely hit 100.
Yes.
And we've hit 100 when we haven't had a war on before. Like, you've had problems that have gotten it to that price. And now that it seems to be on its way down, I think that's a win for everybody. But I want to talk about the kind of nuance of all this, because through the crisis itself, Trump made very proactive decisions to protect Iran's oil production capabilities. And he made very
precise decisions about not impairing their ability to eventually return to some sort of like good neighbor status in the world community. And I think that by doing that, yes, he was using the leverage of the blockade and kind of, you know, we reserve the right to blow you to smithereens if we want to. But I think back to the Bush administration and the Obama administration, and, you know, the Bush-Cheney people, they probably would have been fine blowing Iran back to the smithereens. Obama would have looked the other way and said, keep doing all of the bad stuff that you're doing. Donald Trump, he threaded this needle about as tightly and as narrowly as he possibly could. And guess what? Iran's going to emerge without nuclear capacity and the ability to continue to support themselves on the global scale. How's this a bad thing in any sector?
If the terms and conditions of the Memorandum of Understanding do play out, it could be, I would say, a win. But a lot of people are very skeptical. I won't speak to the particulars. I'll speak mostly to the energy component. If it's perhaps a deal where we get into a compact with other countries, and perhaps, I'm not sure, we would take over Iran's oil supply. But if it's something like that, something akin to what is happening in Venezuela, I think it could be good. But would Iran weaponize their oil and gas like they have in the past for terroristic activities? That remains to be seen, and that wouldn't be necessarily in the control of the Trump administration. They think that they're signing a deal in good faith, and we've seen Iran sadly not honor the terms of conditions. But if you know, for oil and gas supplies, like, I mean, he's done things a little differently, so we have to wait and see if this does materialize.
Well, and that's what I'm basing this on, because I'm thinking of the Bush-Cheney policy, which was very, you know, elongated wars and, you know, trying to do regime change and set up democracies. And Trump's not interested in any of that. And he also, I think, is one of the few leaders on the planet that think the only way you're going to get Iran out of their caves and terrorist mindset and capacity is to give them, you can't just hold a club over their head all the time. You got to give them some carrot to reach for. And we reserve the right to use the club anytime we wish. And he said that, he got irritated with a reporter yesterday and said that plainly. He said, I can go back and drop bombs on them anytime I want. But you have to, and this is the genius of the negotiator that's in him. You have to pull the other side to see the benefit that they can get out of this, fully knowing that the leverage is still there to come back and hold them accountable at any point.
Right. I mean, Iran has to be held extremely accountable because they waffle very frequently. And I'm not sure if the current leaders will act in good faith. I'm a general skeptic of Iran, not the Trump administration. But Iran is a very tricky country to deal with, very similar to Russia, because they could say all these niceties and wonderful things and then backstab you and continue attacking. That's what these foreign adversary countries do. If they're truly and sincerely interested in moving beyond, you know, terrorist activities, becoming like the rest of the Middle East, I would think akin to the UAE or some of these other countries that don't want to bicker and fight and you know, hate Israel. That would be wonderful to see. I believe in holding out in terms of viewing it that way. But what is it, the $300 billion fund to help rebuild? Yeah, so that's not coming necessarily from us, which is great. I think it is coming from others like Qatar, and I'm a little skeptical of Qatar, personally speaking, in terms of their machinations. But does that also mean rebuilding their energy infrastructure? That remains to be seen. And the pause and tolling for 60 days. But Iran likes to use their energy industry as a terroristic weapon and to hold, you know, certain entities hostage. So I want to be led to believe that this MOU will perhaps lead to a difference. But in terms of energy markets, will we still see 15 to 20% of global oil and gas flow through there? That's interesting. I'm not sure. The UAE said that they want to be completely free of dependence of any resources that flow through the Strait of Hormuz. So does this mean that Iran is going to be, you know, influential in that area? Are people going to be less dependent on the Strait of Hormuz? Maybe look to the United States, look to Norway, look to other countries that are, you know, rich in oil deposits where you don't have to transport it. Would people, you know, kind of...
Will they buy more American energy at the end of the day because of all of it? I keep saying there's leverage here that the kind of established kind of news commentator looks at and goes, oh, this isn't the way it's always been. I think that's kind of some of the genius of it. And I think personally, and I've talked to some military sources on this, but I think that personally we have damaged the IRGC enough, and we've put enough leverage on them through the starving of the sanctions and the other things. I think that the people will be able to take control of what they want to.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. All things related, never behind paywalls, always available to you. And that's why you helped us set a new record in May for traffic. Thank you for doing that. You tripled the number of people that came in April. That was awesome. We've got a lot to talk about, obviously, with the recent IPO of SpaceX and a lot of the discussion around what SpaceX is going to be doing. Is related to this next subject, which has gotten to be thornier and thornier in different places here in the U.S. based on where you live geographically. Different states are embracing the concept in different ways. We're talking about data centers, specifically for the purposes of AI innovation, but also practical use. And as we all know, AI is going to basically determine where the next superpower comes from. Will that be China? Will it be us? What are the ramifications? Patrick Hedger is joining us. He's the policy director for NetChoice, and we are glad to have him with us. Patrick, I was at an investors thing on Friday, and the whole room, the day that the SpaceX IPO went public, the whole room, we were there to talk about quantum computing and some other stuff. Nobody could talk about it. They had to talk about SpaceX. And Elon does bring this to the fore, but there's a reason why he's looking at space to put data centers up there. It's because here on the ground, the fight has gotten kind of intense in some places. And even amongst different states, state to state, it's different. What is NetChoice understanding in this issue?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that it's reached this level because for the last 20 years, our industry has been building a data center at a clip of opening one at a clip of about one a week. So this is a really interesting dynamic that's emerged. We think a lot of it is being sown by our foreign adversaries that are trying to suppress innovation here in the United States. But look, there are certainly valid local concerns that people are raising. Electricity prices are increasing in parts of this country. But unfortunately, data centers are becoming kind of a scapegoat for a lot of other bad policies. And that's not good news for the United States going forward, because as you mentioned, it's not just AI. Data centers power basically everything we do online.
Yeah. Well, I want to point out that a decade ago when we started doing that, there was concern about the health of the grid. And if data centers were tapping into the grid everywhere, then you were going to have, really down cycles of energy, and that's going to be a problem. But I think a lot of that has been addressed by saying, supply your own energy, and if you can stay self-contained, then we don't have an issue with it. But even with those modifications, there are still some communities that are like, I don't want to listen to the fans humming in my backyard.
Yeah, so all of the issues that people raise about data centers are issues that are regulated somewhere, either at the local, state, federal, or all three levels, particularly noise ordinances, local land use regulation, setbacks. All of these things are accounted for in the planning and development of a data center. And to the point of the resource use, electricity use, and water use, it doesn't make a lot of business sense to put a data center somewhere where those resources aren't available in abundance. And what we are also finding is that data centers are able to contribute to improving the grid in an area. The data centers contribute a tremendous amount towards what is known as the fixed cost of the grid. So the power supply system itself, both the power plants as well as the substations and wires.
Well, how does that work? If they're draining the grid, how would they be contributing to it?
Yeah, so the data centers there are two essential parts of your electricity bill. There's what you consume, and then there's that fixed cost of the grid. And so the data centers you're able to spread out the fixed cost of the grid. So the improvements in making it more efficient, the improvements of bringing new power online, they're able to spread that out over a rate base that's a lot more robust because of the data center. So essentially data centers in a lot of places are subsidizing the residential rate base.
Well, that would be good news for everybody, at least in the tri-state where we are. There are a couple of states that have taken a different approach to this. Talk to me about what they're doing differently and what the outcomes are.
Yeah, so a good contrast would be here in Virginia. I'm in Northern Virginia. Really, it's the data center capital of the world. And what we've seen is an embrace of data centers. And one, there's been a really positive economic impact. They've contributed tremendous amounts to local property taxes. They estimate in Loudoun County, where a lot of the data centers are in Northern Virginia, that the average residential property tax would be $4,000 higher per year if it weren't for the data centers. So there's that positive impact. And then electricity rates in Virginia have actually increased below the rate of inflation. So it's ironic that compare that to Maine, which was the first state to sort of put forward a data center moratorium, was vetoed by the governor. There basically aren't any major data centers in Maine, but they still have some of the most expensive electricity in the country.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. It's That Kevin Show. ThatKevinShow.com is my website. And thank you, because in the month of May, you came to the site more than you ever have in the history of the site. That's the third month in a row that's happened. I would love to know for a fact that that's because you're going there to help get Angel Tree kids to Christian camp this summer. Betsy Wright is back with us. She is the director of all things Angel Tree for Prison Fellowship. And Betsy, I have to remind myself, sometimes there's people brand new listening to the show that don't know anything about what we're talking about. Prison Fellowship was the vision of somebody who spent time in prison and saw the great opportunity for the gospel to change hearts and minds there. But where did Angel Tree Camp come from?
So Angel Tree started in 1982. As it was a continued ministry to those who are incarcerated, because there were moms in prison who love their kids, miss their kids. The kids are missing their moms. And so they were like trying to find something at Christmas time to get, whether it was something from the commissary, like toothpaste or socks or anything that they could give their child to know, hey, mom loves you. Mom has not forgotten you.
Right.
Right. And so that grew into a ministry where incarcerated men and women can sign up their kids to receive a gift on their behalf to say, hey, I love you. I haven't forgotten you.
And that's where
that's at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And so that's where Angel Tree started. And then we said, we don't want to just do something at Christmas. We want to connect with them year round. And so Angel Tree Camping came about. And it is the most spiritually impactful thing that we do in the Angel Tree space, because you get kids out of their environments. You have them 5 days, and there are no electronics. They're in nature. So, there's not a lot of distractions. They're out in God's creation, and you are just pouring into them and loving on them and sharing the gospel with them 24/7 for those 5 days. And that changes lives when you have that intense focus just completely on those kids and loving on those kids and being a light.
Again, for someone who may be just tuning in, they may be a little bit cynical and say, oh, come on, Betsy, having, 5 days in nature doesn't really change anything for a kid. He's just going to go back to the same environment he just came from. What do you say to those people?
You have to show them there's something different. Like you're gonna follow in what you know. And so if what you know is gangs in your community and in your family, you're going to follow in that pathway. And until we can introduce them into a new way of doing things, a new way of doing life, a new way of relating to the people around you and the world around you, they're going to stay the same until we introduce something that says, hey, let's look at a new way. Let's look at a different path.
Yeah.
And that is so impactful. And we can't just sit back and just say, oh, they're going to follow in their dad's footsteps. No, we can be a change agent.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about this, and I don't think a lot of people understand, is that prison fellowships on the inside of prison, witnessing, discipling, getting people to study the Bible, getting them to understand their relationship with God, working hard at bringing about a redemptive relationship between the prisoner and Jesus Christ. And as they go through this program, they are studying Scripture, and many of them come to faith. And they, even though they're in prison, they are free spiritually. Like they have a new life, and it's like it is a blessing for them to be able to say, "I found Jesus." Now they did it behind bars. And ideally, I'm thinking of those poor moms that are trying to get their kids a gift at Christmas time. Ideally, they would probably love their child to know Jesus as well, but they don't want their kid to come to know Jesus the same way they did, not to wait till they're in prison somewhere. And this is the beauty of Angel Tree. They do their Bible study. They nominate their kid for a week at camp. The kid can go to camp and find the same Jesus that the newly, reborn person in prison has. And they don't have to do the prison thing to find or know that Jesus. And they can share a love for the same God, for the same Savior, at kind of different, ends of the spectrum, and yet have something so deeply, deeply personal in common. And that's the beauty. I think that's the beauty, because it's not just getting people saved. It's also bringing families back together. I know that's a big emphasis for Angel Tree, is to help unite the heart of that parent back to the heart of that child.
It's all about restoration, restoring the broken to our Heavenly Father, but restoring families and restoring children to their parents, restoring families to the heart of God. We so focus on working alongside the local church and surrounding these families with godly community, to walk beside them and to say, hey, we see you when we care. Because so many times these families feel unseen because of the shame attached and the stigma attached to incarceration. And so when you can interject into those lives through camp that we're doing and saying, hey, we all make mistakes. We serve a God of second chances, and your parent gets a second chance, and we want you to have a second chance at a different way of doing things, at knowing our Creator and our Father and finding hope in Him.
Friends, I want you to know that for $200, you can give a week of camp to one of these kids. And if you were to try to send a kid to a Christian camp, not through Angel Tree, but just your own kid, if you're in the tri-state area where I live, that's going to be $500 to $1,000 per child. Because of the way Angel Tree works with these camps, many of them are, in fact, Christian camps that do other Christian camp programs. Some of them aren't, but some of them are. And they have admittedly said, this is a great thing. We want to help defray some of that cost. Prison Fellowship and Angel Tree are heavily invested in making sure that the people have the right training and that the right people are there to counsel them. Many of the counselors are former Angel Tree campers themselves. There's just so many good things about this. And there's so many people that have skin in the game, because the heart of that child is the future of our country. The heart of that child is the future of a community. The heart of that child is the future of a family. And we want to break the cycles of everything that's dysfunctional and wrong. And we want to say, hey, no, God has a better plan for you, and introduce them to that.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Serving it up out with a no-drink minimum. It's That Kevin Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Taylor Swift.
Also lucky enough to be here because of someone else who is the architect of the Toy Story musical universe. He is the king of making us feel the absolute most and pulling at our heartstrings and making us laugh and making us like he's one of our friends, you know what I mean? I'm talking about Randy Newman.
Kind words. I deserve them. I don't deserve them. You do a hell of a song.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really nice.
Feels like a really good day, just personally. You feel like playing a song. You're all set up to do it. Our friendship will never